Welcome to another deep dive with My Mind MashUps. Today, we're tackling a really important topic, managing chronic illnesses.
Yes, it's something that affects so many people.
We've gathered a stack of information to explore different ways of approaching this, looking at both, what's typically done in medicine and more holistic methods.
Right, the conventional versus the holistic view.
Then we'll zero in a bit on natural ways to support well-being for Parkinson's disease and evidence-backed holistic strategies for prostate cancer.
Good areas to focus on. We'll also touch on lifestyle and dietary habits that can be helpful for both.
Yeah, and the surprising power our mindset, hope and belief can actually have on outcomes.
Which is fascinating, really.
Definitely. And finally, we'll share some inspiring words, stories from people who've been there, and some heartfelt advice to offer encouragement and a sense of community.
It's like a comprehensive look.
Let's get into it. If you find value in this deep dive, please do like, share, and subscribe or follow. My Mind MashUps, we're on Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook, Pocket Casts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Okay, so this idea of conventional versus holistic. It's interesting how people often see them as, opposing forces.
Yeah, completely separate worlds sometimes.
But what we've found, especially looking at the research for chronic conditions, is they can actually work incredibly well together.
Exactly. So maybe we should break down what we mean by each one first. Conventional medicine. That's what most of us think of, right? Doctors, hospitals.
Right. It's primarily symptom-centric. Really good at diagnosis and treatment, using standardized protocols, things like medications, surgery.
Things that have been rigorously tested in clinical trials.
Absolutely. Heavily relies on pharmaceuticals, particularly strong for acute conditions, maybe sometimes with a bit less emphasis on long-term prevention for some things.
And you often see different specialists for different parts of the body, right? Like a cardiologist for the heart, a neurologist for the brain.
That's a key feature. Its strength is that focused, research-backed treatment for specific diseases. But as you hinted, the focus might sometimes be more on the immediate problem.
Okay, so that's conventional. What about holistic then?
Holistic medicine takes a much broader view. It emphasizes the whole person, meaning physical, mental, emotional, spiritual well-being, all considered together. The goal isn't just symptom suppression.
It's about finding the root cause.
Exactly. Trying to identify and address the underlying reasons for the illness. It prioritizes prevention and lifestyle factors, diet, exercise, stress management.
Natural therapies, too.
Yes,
Yeah.
natural therapies. And importantly, it encourages you, the patient, to be an active participant in your own health decisions and self-care.
So if we compare them, the key differences are focus, symptoms versus root cause.
Right. Treatment methods, pharmaceuticals and surgery versus maybe nutrition, mindfulness, complementary therapies.
Time horizon, short-term relief versus long-term prevention and wellness.
And the patient's role. More passive recipient versus an active partner.
Okay, but you said they can work together. That's the integration part.
Precisely. And that's where things get really powerful. Our sources highlight some compelling benefits. For instance, patients who get both conventional treatment and mental health support. They're significantly more likely to stick with their medications. The data says 2.57 times more likely.
Wow, that's huge. It really shows you need to address the emotional side of things, too.
It absolutely does. Dealing with a chronic illness takes a toll mentally and emotionally. So having that support is crucial.
And we also see actual physical changes, right? Things like mindfulness and yoga.
Yes. Studies show they can reduce stress biomarkers, improve inflammatory markers, things that are relevant in many chronic conditions.
It's not just about feeling better, it actually impacts the body.
Correct. And therapies like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, and mindfulness, they demonstrably help people cope better with chronic pain and fatigue.
That makes sense.
And there's even a link between managing anxiety and improved glycemic control and diabetes. Again, that mind-body connection.
It's really strong, isn't it? And lifestyle changes too. Personalized nutrition, stress reduction, like Tai Chi. You see real quality of life improvements.
Definitely. In conditions like arthritis, hypertension, people report feeling better, functioning better. That yoga stat you mentioned earlier, a 30% reduction in stress reported by practitioners, that's significant.
It really is. And there are some great quotes that capture this. Thomas Edison talking about the doctor of the future.
Focusing on the human frame, diet, and prevention fits perfectly.
And George Pithulka's calling holistic medicine the basis of the art of healing. Strong words.
They are, and we see real-world data supporting integration too. That 2020 review showing Tai Chi improving mood and quality of life in older adults with chronic illnesses.
Right, and the integrative care models combining approaches for Parkinson's and COPD showing maybe 20% better clinical outcomes.
Exactly. It really demonstrates the value of not siloing these approaches, but bringing them together.
Okay, so let's maybe zero in on Parkinson's disease now. What natural support strategies come up in the research?
Well, diet is a big one. The Mediterranean and Mi Mind diets often get highlighted.
What's in those mainly?
High in vegetables, fruits, whole grains, nuts, olive oil, moderate fish and poultry. Generally whole, unprocessed foods.
And the benefit for Parkinson's?
Some studies suggest they might help delay symptom onset or progression, potentially by 3 to 5 years.
That's quite significant. How do they think it works?
The idea is reducing oxidative stress and neuroinflammation, which are key processes involved in Parkinson's.
Interesting. Now, I know with Parkinson's medication, particularly levodopa, there's something about protein intake.
Yes, that's an important point. High protein intake, especially around the time you take levodopa, can interfere with its absorption.
So what's the advice?
Often it's recommended to consume the bulk of your protein later in the day, perhaps in the evening meal, and maybe lean more towards plant-based proteins, beans, lentils, which might have less impact. But always best to discuss timing with your doctor or a dietitian.
Got it. Being strategic. And antioxidants are important too.
Yes, fighting that oxidative stress. So think berries, leafy greens, nuts, tomatoes, foods rich in those protective compounds.
And omega-3s from fish, flax seeds.
Right. Salmon, flax seeds, walnuts. They're thought to be beneficial for motor function and reducing inflammation.
What about fava beans? I've heard they naturally contain levodopa.
They do contain L-dopa, the precursor to dopamine. However, the evidence regarding their effectiveness for symptoms is still pretty inconclusive.
So, not a replacement for medication?
Absolutely not. That's the crucial takeaway. Don't replace prescribed medication with fava beans. It's something to be aware of, but needs much more research and shouldn't alter treatment plans without medical advice.
Okay, clear. Diet's one piece. What about movement?
Physical movement therapies show a lot of promise. Tai Chi, for example.
How does that help?
Studies show improvements in balance, gait how you walk, and it can significantly reduce falls. We're talking maybe 30–50% reduction in falls in long-term studies.
Wow, that's a major benefit for safety and independence.
Huge. And it's not just the motor symptoms. Tai Chi seems to help with non-motor ones too, like sleep, cognition, anxiety.
And there's even a suggestion it might slow disease progression.
Some research points that way, yes.
Yeah.
Potentially delaying the need to escalate medication, which is very encouraging.
What about yoga?
Yoga also shows benefits. Reductions in rigidity, improved flexibility, maybe 15–20% improvements seen in some studies. Plus, the stress reduction benefits we talked about earlier, lower stress biomarkers, improve mood.
That combination of mindfulness and movement seems powerful.
It does seem to build emotional resilience. And of course, standard aerobic and strength training, walking, cycling, resistance exercises remain vital for functional mobility and muscle strength.
Now, what about mind-body interventions? Music therapy comes up.
Yes, specifically something called rhythmic auditory stimulation, or RAS.
How does that work?
Basically synchronizing movement to a musical beat. It's been shown to improve gait speed and stride length, sometimes by 20–30%.
That's fascinating. Using rhythm to help movement?
It is. There's also vibroacoustic therapy, using gentle sound vibrations being explored for stiffness and tremors. And even things like group singing can help respiratory control and provide social connection.
Simple things like breathing exercises too.
Absolutely. Diaphragmatic or belly breathing strengthens respiratory muscles, reduces stress. Pursed lip breathing can improve oxygen exchange, help with fatigue.
And meditation, mindfulness.
Consistently shown to reduce anxiety and improve quality of life scores, maybe by around 25% in people with Parkinson's.
It's good to see the scientific backing for these. You mentioned a 12-month Tai Chi study showing motor score improvement.
Yes, and that Mind diet study suggesting a delay in onset by nearly 5 years. The 30% gait improvement with music therapy improved balance from 12-week yoga programs.
And hearing experts endorse these approaches adds weight too.
Like Terry Ellis on music therapies and guidance from APDA dietitians on protein timing, it shows these are being integrated into expert recommendations.
Okay, let's shift focus now to prostate cancer. What evidence-based holistic strategies are highlighted there?
Again, diet plays a really significant role, particularly focusing on anti-inflammatory foods. Pomegranate is one that often comes up.
What's the evidence for pomegranate?
Well, some early studies suggested it could slow down the rate at which PSA levels rise, PSA being a key marker for prostate cancer. It also seemed to reduce oxidative stress.
How does it work? Any ideas?
It contains compounds like ligotannins and anthocyanins. These are thought to interfere with cancer cell growth and the formation of new blood vessels that feed tumors, a process called angiogenesis.
But I think I saw something about larger trials.
Yes, that's important context. A large phase 3 trial didn't find a significant overall benefit across all men. However, there was a subset of men, those with a specific genetic variation related to manganese superoxide dismutase, MNSODAA genotype, who did seem to respond better.
So it's promising, but maybe not for everyone. Needs more research.
Exactly. Flaxseed is another interesting one.
Rich in lignans and omega-3s, right?
Correct. These have been linked to potentially reducing tumor aggressiveness and maybe lowering serum testosterone levels slightly. A pilot study found reduced cholesterol and testosterone in men who added flaxseed.
And those Mediterranean and Meinbach diets we discussed. Relevant here, too.
Very much so. Key components like tomatoes with their lycopene, cruciferous vegetables like broccoli containing sulforaphane, fatty fish, olive oil, all linked to slower cancer progression and reduced inflammation.
Inflammation seems to be a common thread.
It really does. And omega-3 rich foods, salmon, walnuts, flax seeds, again help lower inflammation and support hormonal balance, which is crucial in prostate cancer.
Are there other strategies specifically for hormonal balance?
Yes. Limiting saturated fats, especially from red and processed meats, is often advised. Prioritizing plant-based proteins seems beneficial.
Minerals, too, like zinc and selenium.
Right. Found in nuts, seeds, mushrooms. They might play a role in inhibiting the conversion of testosterone to a more potent form called DHT. And vitamin D is important for immune function and hormone regulation. Sunlight, fatty fish, fortified foods are sources.
And emotional wellness, just as important here.
Absolutely critical. Practices like mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, can significantly reduce anxiety and help men cope with treatment side effects.
Physical activity, too.
Definitely. Aerobic plus resistance training helps preserve muscle mass, especially during hormone therapy. It lowers inflammation, enhances mood, improves sleep. Even gentler forms like Tai Chi and yoga offer benefits for balance and stress.
And support groups.
Hugely valuable. Linked to improved emotional resilience, reduced isolation. Connecting with others going through similar experiences makes a big difference.
What about natural immune support? NK cells.
Natural killer cells, yes.
Yeah.
Preclinical studies show they have the potential to target tumor cells, but the effectiveness in humans seems variable so far. It's an area of ongoing research.
Mushrooms. Green tea.
They contain compounds like polysaccharides and polyphenols that seem to modulate immune responses. Again, part of a broader healthy lifestyle approach.
It's good to see clinical support for some of these lifestyle factors too, like the flaxseed trial reducing tumor proliferation.
Yes, and increasing apoptosis, which is programmed cell death. The pomegranate juice study showing longer PSA doubling time in some men over 3 years.
And studies combining diet and exercise showing better metabolic health.
Exactly. And expert opinions like Dr. Pockley on NK cell therapies or guidelines from places like Johns Hopkins emphasizing weight management and avoiding charred meats, it all points towards an integrated approach being beneficial.
So what really stands out is the overlap, isn't it? Practices benefiting both Parkinson's and prostate cancer.
Yes, that's a key takeaway. There's significant common ground.
Anti-inflammatory diets seem central, those plant-based Mediterranean My90 styles.
Right. We saw the potential for reduced prostate cancer progression maybe by 47% in one UCSF study, lower inflammation via lycopene, sulforaphane.
And for Parkinson's, slower progression via reduced oxidative stress, neuroinflammation, plus specific benefits from berries, greens, omega-3s for motor function.
And specific foods like flaxseed show up for both reducing tumor aggressiveness and prostate cancer, providing neuroprotective omega-3s for Parkinson's. Pomegranate, too, though the evidence is mixed for prostate cancer, its anti-inflammatory action could still be supportive in Parkinson's.
And avoiding processed meats and saturated fats seems like good advice across the board.
Yes, due to links with inflammation and hormonal imbalances relevant to both conditions, plant-based proteins are generally recommended.
Stress reduction techniques too, Tai Chi, yoga.
Tai Chi shows benefits for fatigue and immunity in prostate cancer, while enhancing balance, reducing falls, lowering cortisol in Parkinson's. Yoga helps reduce rigidity in PD, lowers stress biomarkers in prostate cancer.
And MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction.
Effective for reducing anxiety and depression in both. Lasting effects seen in prostate cancer studies, and improvements in anxiety, depression, perceived stress, and even motor symptoms in Parkinson's research.
Exercise, aerobic, and resistance.
Crucial for both.
Yeah.
Preserving muscle mass, lowering inflammation, improving metabolic health. Foundational, really.
And finally, that social support piece.
Hugely important. Support groups, peer networks correlated with lower depression, higher life satisfaction in prostate cancer.
And reduced isolation, better treatment adherence in Parkinson's. That stat about 83% finding exercise with peer stress relieving is telling.
It is. Family and caregiver involvement provides vital emotional and practical support, enhancing coping. Even thinking about how our social environment encourages healthy habits can strengthen motivation.
So if you put it all together, the overlapping benefits of plant-based diets, Tai Chi, mindfulness, social support, it's quite striking.
It really emphasizes how fundamental, healthy lifestyle pillars contribute broadly to managing these specific yet very different chronic conditions.
Now let's shift gears slightly to something often overlooked, but potentially incredibly powerful: the impact of hope, belief, and a positive mindset.
Yes, this is a fascinating area. The research suggests a real connection between hope and better health outcomes. For example, hopeful patients are, again, over 2.5 times more likely to adhere to their treatment plans.
That's the same figure as for mental health support integration. Interesting.
It is. And a large meta-analysis linked positive illness perceptions, believing you can manage it, to healthier coping strategies and about 30% better recovery rates.
So, how you think about your illness matters. A lot.
It seems so. Higher hope levels are also linked to better life satisfaction, less depression and anxiety, even in adolescents dealing with chronic conditions.
What about faith and spirituality?
For many people, this is a huge source of strength. Being part of a faith community, engaging in spiritual practices, it's associated with reduced anxiety and isolation. Studies in cardiovascular patients found 83% reported benefits.
Builds emotional resilience.
Seems to, yes.
Yeah.
Maybe 60–65% improvement noted in some studies. And it can even enhance adherence to medical regimens in conditions like chronic pain or sickle cell disease.
And we touched on MBSR earlier, mindfulness reducing pain.
Yes, studies show reduced perceived pain, maybe 25% lower, and improved immune function in conditions like arthritis and fibromyalgia through practices like MBSR.
What about visualization? Using the mind's eye.
Another interesting technique. Some studies show visualization increasing serotonin, that feel-good neurotransmitter, by 15–20% and reducing cortisol in renal failure patients. Guided imagery has lowered pain scores by around 30% in fibromyalgia and headache trials.
And this ties into neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to change.
Exactly. Programs like the AR program leverage this idea to help improve fatigue and pain in conditions like ME/CFS and long COVID, with around 70% reporting functional gains.
And then there's the placebo effect, the power of belief itself.
The classic example. Placebos have induced pain reduction around 30% in some trials comparable to actual drugs.
How does that even work?
It's complex, but positive expectations seem to trigger dopamine release in the brain, which enhances motivation and can actually lead to real physiological changes. Brain imaging is even starting to identify predictors of who responds best to placebos.
So belief can genuinely change our biology?
The evidence strongly suggests it can play a role. The summary table in our sources really lays out the benefits and examples for hope, faith, visualization, and placebo effects.
And expert insights back this up.
Yes, like Dr. Hager emphasizing managing illness perceptions, or Dr. Apkarian's work showing placebos can provide clinically meaningful pain relief. It underscores the mind's role.
Okay, to round this out, let's share some encouragement. Quotes, stories, advice.
Absolutely. Sometimes hearing powerful words or relatable stories is what people need most.
We found some great quotes on hope and resilience. Things like, "We cannot lose hope. We must try to remain positive."
And Stuart Scott's famous line, "You beat cancer by how you live, why you live, and in the manner in which you live." So powerful.
And Paulo Coelho, "When your heart becomes tired, just walk with your legs but move on." That perseverance.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's quote, too, about strength coming from struggle, not just winning. Very relevant for chronic illness.
And the survivor stories offer such perspective. Andrew, 30 years with Parkinson's.
Talking about acceptance, gratitude, determination to live fully, really inspiring.
And Lonnie, stage 4 prostate cancer survivor, his emphasis on patient education, mental health support.
Resilience, love for life, advocacy, His advice to take time with decisions and seek support is so practical too.
Pema, parenting young kids with Parkinson's, finding strength in openness.
And Sam, the prostate cancer survivor, shifting from fear to hope through trusted care and good treatment outcomes.
Caregiver experiences are vital too. Parkinson's caregivers talking about sadness, fatigue, but finding strength and acceptance, prayer.
That quote about holding inner sadness really captures the emotional load.
And Barbara, caring for her husband with prostate cancer, talking about the relationship shift, but also finding purpose.
These stories show the human side, the emotional journey.
And the emotion advice that comes through is valuable. Acceptance, self-compassion.
Being kind to yourself.
Yeah.
Staying connected with positive people.
Sharing and seeking support, not isolating yourself.
Focusing on the present, celebrating small steps, remembering how far you've come.
And embracing resilience, accepting the new reality, and trying to build something good within it.
That's a great definition of resilience.
Ultimately, the message seems to be, you're not alone in this. Hearing other stories, getting support, it matters.
Encouragement, love, understanding, they make a huge difference for individuals and families affected by these conditions.
Well, this deep dive has certainly covered a lot of ground. From treatment philosophies to specific strategies for Parkinson's and prostate cancer, and that crucial role of mindset and support.
It really has. A comprehensive look at managing chronic illness from multiple angles.
We sincerely hope this information empowers you, or maybe someone you know, to approach these challenges with knowledge and a sense of possibility.
But always remember to consult with your healthcare providers. Personalize any interventions. What works for one person might not be right for another.
Absolutely essential advice.
And if you found this exploration valuable, please do like, share, and subscribe, or follow My Mind MashUps. We're on Amazon Music, Audible, Facebook, Pocket Casts, Spotify, and YouTube. We'd love to have you join us for more deep dives.
We truly believe in the power of sharing information and building connection. Thanks so much for joining us on this journey today.